Hey there, everyone. I'm 13 News Now meteorologist Rochelle Peart. A couple of things have changed in the tropics since our last video, so let's dive right on into it. We now have Wilfred. We also have officially gone into the Greek alphabet, and we're still continuing to watch Major Hurricane Teddy churning out in the middle of the Atlantic. Here's a look at this wide swath of what's going on out there. Here's Hurricane Teddy toward the middle part of your screen. We have Wilfred here. Alpha still swirling out there since about earlier this afternoon, and continuing to watch Tropical Depression 22. Now, we thought 22 was going to be Wilfred, but this storm kind of intercepted that name and took it and kind of finalized that list of names, a list of 21 names that we have for the Atlantic season. And then we thought 22 is going to be Alpha. We're going to start off the Greek alphabet. And then around 12:30, the National Hurricane Center put out a special advisory saying that, hey, Alpha, we're going to start putting out some advisories on this, located off of the coast of Portugal. A lot of people, I think, were thrown off by that. But here's Subtropical Storm Alpha. Here's a look at Subtropical Storm Alpha. Of course, there's Portugal there. There's Spain. And also we're looking at other parts of Western Europe at this point. Subtropical Storm Alpha, 50-mile-an-hour winds advisory at 12:30. This was the initial advisory, not lasting very long. It's going to move through parts of Portugal, over parts of northwestern Spain, and then coming off the northern coast of Spain as a remnant low or a subtropical depression. What's the difference between a subtropical storm and a tropical storm? A subtropical storm is more of a hybrid between the tropical characteristics and non-tropical characteristics. So when we're talking about a subtropical storm, they can form over tropical and subtropical waters anywhere from the equator to 50 degrees north. Also, the strongest winds typically away from the center of the storm. And it's less symmetric when it comes to that wind field versus a tropical system. Here's a look at Hurricane Teddy continuing to swirl. Something you might be noticing from yesterday to today is that eye not as well defined and not as clear in the center. Some of those clouds have started to fill in just a little bit, but still a major, very powerful hurricane. Take a look at this. This is just another view of that infrared satellite, which shows us the temperatures at the tops of the clouds. Some of those clouds, or the temperatures at the tops of the clouds, are anywhere between -70 and -80, and that's where we're seeing these white colors mainly on the western side of the system. But again, you do see that eye. It's still present, not as well defined, but this is continuing to be a very powerful storm. Teddy's bumping up against a little bit of dry in this tan color here, but it continues to persist. But we're moving into some colder waters behind where Paulette moved through just a few days back, and we're continuing to watch that area that is still Paulette. Has a little bit of a chance maybe of some tropical redevelopment rather, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. Wind shear on the western part of the Atlantic basin does show a little bit where Teddy is located, and then as it heads closer to Bermuda, a little bit of wind shear could kind of mess with the storm just a little bit. Sea surface temperatures, however, continue to be very, very nice for tropical development, and that's exactly what these systems continue to thrive off of. Those temperatures going to be into the low to mid 80s as Teddy continues to move through. The 11 a.m. advisory on this system, 130-mile-an-hour winds moving northwest at 12, which is great news for the people of Bermuda because that storm is going to continue to move. It's not going to linger close to there. And the cone actually now has Bermuda no longer included. You do see it is just off to the east of that island, but that doesn't mean they're not going to feel anything because this system, it expands for hundreds of miles. So the people of Bermuda preparing for some sort of impact from either a high-grade Cat 2 or low-grade Cat 3. Still a very powerful hurricane going to be moving close to that area. Let's talk about Tropical Depression 22. Now, this is the storm we thought was going to be Wilfred, and then we thought it was going to be Alpha, possibly now going to become Beta before the end of Friday. Check this out. We're going to also become a hurricane as we head into Sunday afternoon. Now, this icon is for tomorrow morning as a tropical storm. Of course, the next name on the list will be Beta, but we're keeping an eye on Tropical Depression 22 to see exactly when it does become that next tropical storm. Areas down toward Texas and into Louisiana are going to have to keep an eye on this. Here's a look at Wilfred. We'll get back to Wilfred in a second. I do want to take a closer look at where 22 is currently located. Again, it is feeding off of some very, very warm waters. Check out these numbers, mid 80s, upper 80s. So yeah, this system could become our next hurricane, possibly Hurricane Beta, which I do believe we actually did see a Hurricane Beta in 2005 as well. Back to Wilfred very quickly, 40-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 50, moving west-northwest at 17 miles an hour. Not going to do much of anything. This is going to be a fish storm, very similar to what we saw with Renee. But of course, it did get that last name on the list of hurricane names for the 2020 season, prompting us to head into the Greek alphabet. Speaking of the Greek alphabet, here's what we're going to be dealing with. I mentioned a little bit earlier that back in 2005, they got to Zeta, which was the 6th name on the list. That was toward the end of the season. I believe that was December, actually, that we did see Zeta form. So we're a month ahead of where we saw Alpha. So we'll keep an eye on this, but this is the list of names that you need to know moving forward for the rest of the Atlantic hurricane season. Things besides those storms, still pretty active. I mentioned the remnants of Paulette, so this is post-tropical cyclone Paulette, a 30% chance of developing within the next 2 days, and within the next 5 days, a 40% or medium chance. So that's actually increased from earlier today. So we're keeping an eye on what's left of Paulette to possibly reform into something, just something to keep your eye on over the next few days. And we also have a tropical wave that's going to come off that western coast of Africa, 20% chance of developing within the next